morning and welcome to the May 28th, 2025 meeting of the Natural Resources Board. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our great nation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for all. I'll now call our hybrid meeting together. We will have some appearances online and also present in the meeting. So it's a little bit of a mix as usual. I have a few reminders and some introductory comments before we go on to the agenda. Please turn off your phones, any other devices that may interrupt the meeting, and please keep the background noise down so it makes it easier for people to hear what's going on. Participants online, please make sure you're muted and your video is turned off until your item is announced. There's sometimes a delay in the broadcast and it's easy to talk over one another. Our NRB meetings are televised via YouTube. We welcome and thank all viewers that are with us today, and records of our past meetings are available for review on the DNR website under Natural Resource Board Briefs of Action. Direct public involvement and open, transparent meetings are the foundation for how this board's operated for over 50 years and for how we strive to operate today. Our Natural Resources Board discussions and decision-making are transparent to all, and public testimony is welcome at every regularly scheduled Natural Resource Board meeting. To ensure fair and equal time for all, please limit your public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker. And we have this light system here, so when the lights turn yellow, you're down to about 30 seconds, and when they turn red, you've used up your 3 minutes. And I will try and discreetly remind you of that if my red light goes on up here. It's just an opportunity to close out your comments if you've got a key point you want to emphasize right at the end. I should also mention that speakers may augment their remarks with written materials. I know people that come here have an awful lot that they'd like to share with us, and it's really hard to squeeze it into 3 minutes. So if you have written information, that's very welcome to share with the board as well to cover some of those details you really don't have time for to talk. I want to say again, thank you to Secretary Karen Yoon and your leadership team for your support of this board and your commitment to enhance collaboration between the department, the board, and the citizens we serve. And thanks also to our issue presenters, DNR information technology staff, Office of Communications, General Counsel, and all the other support staff that make these meetings possible. It takes a lot of time and effort, and your time is valuable, and we very much appreciate your support. I also individually recognize Ashley Bistel at every one of our meetings. Ashley is our Natural Resource Board liaison and primary contact for members of the public and staff who communicate with the board. Thank you, Ashley. She does a great job of supporting us and supporting you and making this system work. I want to thank all the employees, the citizen volunteers, and conservation partners of the Department of Natural Resources for your commitment and tireless work to protect and enhance our natural resources and to serve all citizens of our great state. Our accomplishments here are greater than the department, they're greater than the board. They're really the accomplishments of the conservation community in the state of Wisconsin, and everyone should share with the successes and the challenges. Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? Hearing none, Ashley, please call the roll.
Present.
Here.
Present. Present.
Here. Present. We have a quorum here today, and at this point, I'd also like to welcome and notice Jeff Hastings as our brand new board member. This is Jeff's first meeting. Jeff comes to us from Westby. Jeff, you want to say hello to the conservation community?
Thank you, Bill. I'm looking forward to it. I've been recently retired and feel like I've got the time now to dive into this agenda and hopefully add some meaningful input. So glad to be here.
Jeff's got a wonderful background in county conservation work at the local level, local government, extensive work with Trout Unlimited. Got a great background, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, 1B, Secretary's remarks. Kara,
Great.
you're on.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bill. And hi, Jeff. Thanks and welcome. Really nice to have you here and just joining this great board that we have in the policy making and decision making work of the department. So thank you for joining. It's a lot of work and we appreciate your service. I've been spending a lot of time this month or this past month just touring around the state and seeing the great work of the DNR. So I was just going to give you a little bit of a readout of that. Last time I was able to do it chronologically, this time I can actually do it by mission area because it's been a lot of amazing work that I've been able to see. I wanted to share that with you guys. One is around our clean water work out of our environmental management division. I got to go with the governor to Platteville to see their lead service line replacement. They are almost complete. They'll be complete this year, which is really incredible. It's about 700 lines. A really important work that we do in partnership with communities and municipalities to remove lead from the system. Last week, I got to go to Truax with General Straub, who's the new head of the DMA, to go see the work that they've been doing on PFAS remediation there at the base. Really incredible, and I think a great partnership between the administration's national security mission and our environmental mission, and working together to try to make sure we can meet both missions. I got to go to see ag partners at both Bindle Farm in Sauk County and Michael Fields Agricultural Institute to see some of the conservation practices they're doing across the around their areas to basically reduce nutrient loads into their waterways, which is really incredible and I think an area of potential growth for us as an agency. On the fish and wildlife side, I got to do a lot of different things, but the two I'll just point out are I got to go to Mohi in Poynette, which is basically bringing youth into the sporting and fishing community. Really great partnership with OHEC, who runs that program. And I obviously got to go with some of you to the Wisconsin Conservation Congress and just see a really incredible county level grassroots support for the fishing and hunting work that we do here in the department. 2 weeks ago, on the park side, I got to go to Lapham Peak for a ribbon cutting. The Friends Group, in addition to federal and state support, raised money for a building there, which is incredible. Almost a $3 million investment to build a new facility there. And we got to go to the ribbon cutting, and it was an amazing partnership between the community and the state and the federal government. And on the forestry side, I got to participate in a Trillion Trees event with the United Nations ahead of the NHL draft. So that was really neat. I continue to meet with members of Joint Finance and members in the legislature just to talk through budget issues as we go through that process. A lot of interest and support and trying to work through the process on some of the top priorities we have around PFAS, Knowles-Nelson, the fee increases that we've talked about before, and all the other things in the governor's budget. So hopefully a lot of that will make it through the process and get to the governor's desk. And then I'll just mention on the people side of the house, I did get to attend the SWISDIP, which is the State of Wisconsin Student Diversity Internship Program. We're bringing on 31 interns this summer to spend 10 to 12 weeks with us doing some of the work that we do and hopefully bring them on board eventually. So a lot of good work across the board. And I will turn it back to you, Bill.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of our agenda for May 28, 2025. Are there any changes to the agenda? We had an early agenda that came out with item 6A, the 2024 Shikar Safari Club International Wildlife Officer of the Year Award, and we're moving that up to right after the consent agenda, really to accommodate the friends and the family attending for the award presentation. Then we'll go back to our standard agenda after that. So I would propose that change. And any other suggestions for changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll need a motion to approve the May agenda as adjusted.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion to approve from Doug. Is there a second?
Second.
Deb seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and we have an agenda. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have a number of items on it, so be patient. I'll keep my water close by. Item 2A, approval of the brief of action from April 9, 2025. 2B, acknowledging a donation. Friends of Crex Meadows donated $31,000 to support limited-term employee hourly wages at the Glacial Lake Grantsburg Work Unit. Item 2C, acknowledging in-kind donation. The Mead Grounds Association will hire a contractor to conduct brush removal and field preparation to improve field 3 of the Mead Dog Training Ground. Item 2D, acknowledging a donation. Newport Wilderness Society donated $25,898.57. This donation will be used to fund an limited-term employee natural resources educator position. Item 2E, acknowledging a donation. The Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin will make a direct donation of seed valued at $35,000 for Rush Creek State Natural Area. Item 2F, acknowledging a donation from Friends of Horicon Marsh, donating $23,008.58 to support Horicon Marsh limited-term employee expenses. Item 2G, acknowledging a donation from Muskie Clubs Alliance of Wisconsin, donated $75,000 to the Bureau of Fisheries Management. Item 2H, acknowledging a donation. Sturgeon for Tomorrow donated $35,000 to the Bureau of Fisheries Management. And item 2I, which is to request the board authorize a preliminary public hearing and comment period for the statement of scope for Board Order WM 525 for proposed rules affecting chapters NR 10 related to beaver management. With that, I'd request a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Rachel moves approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Robin seconds. I would like to discuss something briefly, just to note that all of these donations add up to about $224,000 in cash, plus some donated time and energy and effort. And to me, it's just another one of those reminders about how the conservation community in Wisconsin pulls together and makes good things happen. And the support we get from many of these citizens groups is just fabulous. And this is another example of that. Another $250,000 toward conservation across the state, filling holes that the department can't fund under the current budget or the current staffing. And it's just wonderful to see that kind of support. So with that, a big thanks. Now we'll need to ask for a vote on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item is item 3. We have no items under item 3 that have been moved for discussion. Item 6A is next on our adjusted agenda, and that will be the presentation of the 2024 Shikar Safari Award Club International Wildlife Officer of the Year. Casey Krieger, Chief Conservation Warden. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, everybody. Chair Smith, Secretary Young, Deputy Secretary Stephen Little, and Assistant Deputy Secretary Mark Aquino, members of the Natural Resources Board, as well as those in the audience here today and online. My name is Casey Krieger. I am the Chief Warden and Division Administrator for the Division of Public Safety and Resource Protection. So it's truly exciting and an honor for me to be up here today to announce and honor Lieutenant Nick Majewski with the 2024 Shikar Safari International Wildlife Officer of the Year Award. Lieutenant Majewski is often described as an influential leader by his direct supervisor, Mike Katzenberg, with which I would not disagree with that assessment. Lieutenant Majewski leads with a grace, a compassion, support, and trust side by side with his warden team, serving the counties of Milwaukee, Washington, and Ozaukee. The Southeast region is arguably among some of the busiest area we have in the state of Wisconsin due to the high population center that resides there, as well as the center of an incredible outdoor opportunity and as well as many national events that are held there. Most recently, you may recall the Republic National Convention that was held there in Milwaukee, and Lieutenant Mayovsky and his team were instrumental and played a vital role in both the planning and security for all the visitors and citizens down in that area. Service excellence is also a top priority for Nick, as there are great demands on that Southeast area team, not only from the citizens, the natural resources down there, but other law enforcement agencies, organizations, and as well as all the citizens that reside there. Lieutenant Mayovsky takes incredible care to help balance his team and negate those great demands. He also serves as a member of our Conservation Ward and Honor Guard, which often participates in both celebratory and memorial services across our state. This team is truly dedicated to honoring our deceased wardens and past service members. Lieutenant Mayovsky also has an incredible, great passion for ensuring the safety of our wardens. He's led efforts on updating our training programs to ensure every one of our divisional employees make it home safe every night. Nick does a tremendous amount for our division, his colleagues, and the citizens of our great state. His public service is simply outstanding. Nick, thank you for all that you do and how you do it. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to serve alongside you. Congratulations on receiving this award and acknowledging your outstanding service. So Chair Smith, if it's all right with you, I'd like to present Nick with the award, and if you'd be allowed to say a few words. That's right.
Good morning to the members of the board and to Secretary Hune. I am deeply honored and humbled to stand before you today as the recipient of the Shikar Safari International Wildlife Officer Award. I've served with the Division of Public Safety and Resource Protection for over 11 years. I've been in law enforcement for more than 15 years. Over the course of my career, I've had the privilege to work alongside many dedicated wardens and officers, individuals who have inspired me, challenged me, and supported me. While I was asked to share a bit about myself and my journey, I want to emphasize that this award is not solely about me. It reflects the mentorship, support, and teamwork I have been fortunate to receive throughout my career. I would not be here without the encouragement of my peers, the guidance of my supervisors, and the leadership of those, many of whom are in this room, who believed in me. I also want to acknowledge that many wardens across the state are equally as deserving of this honor. Thank you, Captain Katzenberg, for your nomination, your steady support, your mentorship. It means more than I can express. It's humbling to be joined the ranks of past recipients such as Lieutenant Chris Shea, Major Brian Nepper, Lieutenant John Sinclair, Lieutenant Andy Lundeen, and Deputy Chief Jeremy Peary. These are individuals who exemplify what this award represents and I am truly grateful to be in their company. Although I'm the one accepting the award today, the credit truly belongs to the exceptional team I have the privilege of working with every day, the wardens in Milwaukee, Washington, and Ozaukee County. They consistently go above and beyond to protect Wisconsin's natural resources, ensure public safety for those recreating outdoors, and maintain our state lands and parks as safe and welcoming spaces for all. I learn from them daily and strive to create an environment where they can grow, thrive, and succeed in their careers. To my team, thank you for your continued support and for placing your trust in me. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank my family, my wife, Karen, and our 2 daughters, Camille and Simone, who are here with me today. This career is not just a job, it's a lifestyle that impacts the whole family. I am incredibly blessed to have a family that encourages and supports me in every step of this journey. Over the years, I've missed countless family events because duty called. Thank you for your patience, your understanding, and your overwhelming support. Karen, thank you for holding down the fort through it all. You are the rock of our family, and words truly can't capture how much I appreciate everything you do. You are an incredible wife and mother. I admire your strength, your grace, and your leadership. I've learned more about leading with compassion from you than from anyone else. I would not be standing here today without the love and support of Karen, Camille, and Simone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for your time this morning, and thank you to the Natural Resource Board for your continued support of all the wardens across Wisconsin. For many years, I sat where these wardens are now, providing security for the board and listening to the important issues you work through. I've seen firsthand the dedication and care you bring to your roles. I truly appreciate all that you do for the Division of Public Safety and Resource Protection and for the people and natural resources of our state. Thank you.
Nick, on behalf of the board, thank you very much for your comments, for your service, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Yep.
Really appreciate it.
Any other comments from the board, questions? Robin?
Yeah, I just want to say that you and all of the wardens, you are the DNR to the public. And so every positive interaction you have is a positive reflection on the agency, and it makes everything that everyone does, all the work that they do, so much easier when we have people like you and your team and others within the agency who do such an outstanding job. And I understand totally the commitment your family must have to you to go through all that they go through to have you serve in that position. So thanks to them too.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate your work.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to our regular order on the agenda, the next item is action item 4A. Request the board approve the statement of scope for board order WM 3-25 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice for board order number WM-3-25. And notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting chapter NR 10 related to revising sharp-tailed grouse management zones. Scott Carroll, Wildlife Regulation Policy Specialist. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Chair Smith, Secretary Young, members of the board. So we're here today to request approval of a scope statement that would revise some of our sharp-tailed grouse management zones and do a couple other things related to sharp-tailed grouse management. And I don't know, can you advance the slide? It's not working. Thank you. So just as a reminder, we are at the scope statement approval part of the rule process. So we're looking for approval of scope so we can begin writing rule language to bring out for public opinion and then back to the board. There was no preliminary public hearing required from JCRR on this specific scope statement, so we didn't have to go through that effort. Therefore, there's no comments on that scope statement today. Next slide, please. One more. Thank you. So This board may remember that back in April of 2024, the department brought a revision to the Sharp-tailed grouse management plan, which was approved. And so what that management plan does is it recognizes that sharp-tailed grouse are mainly exist in areas with managed habitats due to land use changes. And the map you see before you on that slide today is our current sharp-tailed grouse management zones. They also serve as our bear zone map, and that used to be the deer zone map prior to the deer trustee report in 2014. But what we're looking to do is to update the zones because the proposed zones will be more specific to where sharp-tailed grouse are located and projected to expand on based on habitat management activities focused through the sharp-tailed grouse management plan. So we're looking to make the zones a little bit more acknowledge of where sharp-tailed grouse currently exist and where we see them existing in the future, because there's plenty of zones in this map where there are currently no sharp-tailed grouse. So we're looking to do that. And then also the rule may make adjustments to the metrics used to establish sharp-tailed grouse quotas. So we're trying to move, previously we used to throw a lot of language in code about what the quotas would be. And under our adaptive management, we refer greatly to the management plan. We did something similar regarding wolves and elk, where we say the quota would maybe based on certain objectives established in the species management plan. That's what we're looking to do here, is to give that reference to the species management plan for setting quotas. So we have a little more flexibility on what the quotas may or may not be. And that's basically the rule. We're looking at a relatively small rule and having this back to the board for approval sometime later this fall. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Hearing none. I have one for you.
Sure.
Over the last couple of years, we've had other opportunities to learn about sharp-tailed grouse with the management plan that had come through. And one of the issues there was, how do we engage the non-hunting public in the planning process and, in this case, the rulemaking process? So I don't know that you have an answer for it, but I want to raise that as an issue and ask for outreach to the people that have an interest in the Barrens habitat type and the sharp-tailed grouse as a species, but all the other species that are within these management zones that you're going to be talking about. They have an interest in some of the birding organizations. They've participated in the hearings, and they should be part of the discussion as we go forward. So I would put that out as a challenge, I guess, is to reach out to some of these groups, whether they're birding organizations or they're insect people or they're people that are just interested in the flora up there, some of the plants, the unique botany that's on the Barrens.
Certainly. Yeah. So the good thing about the rulemaking process is we put this out very broadly to accept public comments. We can certainly look to make more of an effort to our the non-consumptive users and groups. So it's not just people interested in harvesting sharp-tailed grouse. Something's very similar to with elk. You know, we just did the management plan again last year, and we recognize that there's a very strong interest for people who like to view elk similarly with sharp-tailed grouse and some of our other species. So we'll definitely make an effort to make sure we're hitting as many groups as we can when getting comments on these proposed rules.
Thank you. Other questions from the board? We have no public speakers for this one. I should note we have one written communication from the Wisconsin Animal Protection Society asking the department to refrain from promoting hunting, trapping, and fishing of animal and fish species. This pertains to this agenda item, and they also wanted it the same input on the projected beaver plan and on the turkey management plan. So I probably won't mention this again throughout the course of the meeting, but we do have a written communication I wanted to take note of. Anything else? Okay. We need to have a motion. Robin moves approval. Is
Second.
there a second? Doug seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, item 4B, land donation and project boundary expansion, Green Bay West Shores Wildlife Area, Marinette County. Terry Bay, Director, Bureau of Facilities and Lands. Welcome,
Good
Terry.
morning, Chairman Smith, Secretary Hune, and the board. Terry Bay, Director of Facilities and Lands. Thanks for having me today. The department is requesting approval to accept a donation of 1.29 acres of land predominantly within the project boundary of the Green Bay West Shores Wildlife Area located in Marinette County. This donation is a generous gift to the department by Miss B. Miley. This property is comprised of a mix of bottomland forested wetlands, lowland brush, and shoreline. The parcel abuts department-owned land to the east and north and also has 103 feet of shoreline frontage on Green Bay. It lies just outside the project boundary of Peshtigo Harbor Unit of the Green Bay West Shore Wildlife Area, which is approximately 7 miles southeast of Peshtigo. Additionally, the property has 100 feet of frontage on Harbor Road, which makes it fully accessible to the public for all 5 nature-based outdoor recreational activities. As part of the largest freshwater estuary in the world, the coastal marshes and wetlands in this unit are some of the best remaining in the Wisconsin shoreline of Lake Michigan. The unit boasts many threatened and endangered species dependent on this coastal complex and is also an important migratory bird concentration area for waterfowl and other wetland-dependent birds. Additionally, the area is a federally significant shoreline protection area. This property addition will be managed by the department's Fisheries and Wildlife Bureaus to continue to benefit those populations in accordance with the parameters set forth in the Green Bay West Shores Master Plan that was approved by the Natural Resources Board in August of 2014. The department is requesting the board approve the acceptance of a donation of 1.29 acres of land for the Green Bay West Shore Wildlife Area from Miss B. Miley, that the board approve the expansion of the project boundary of the Green Bay West Shore Wildlife Area to include the entire parcel, that a certificate of appreciation be sent to the donor, and that an expression of appreciation be made a part of the official records of the Natural Resources Board.
Okay, we have no public appearances on this item and no written input. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, we'll need a motion.
I'll move to accept the generous donation.
Rachel moves approval. Do we have a second? Second from Jeff. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item up, Terry. Hang tight.
Okay.
Item 4C, land acquisition, Tiffany Wildlife Area, Buffalo County. Once again, Terry Bay.
Thank you. The department is requesting approval to acquire approximately 412 acres of land located entirely within the boundary of the Tiffany Wildlife Area in Buffalo County from Northern States Power Company for approximately $1.273 million. The closing costs and approximately $331,000 or 26% of the acquisition will be financed from funds from the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program. The remaining $942,000 or 74% of the acquisition will be funded by a federal cooperative endangered species conservation fund grant. Acquisition of these parcels will provide additional frontage along the Buffalo Slough, a backwater of the Chippewa River, as well as permanent access to several high-quality wetlands. These wetlands include Stump Lake, a well-known waterfowl hunting destination that consists of a 45-acre emergent marsh considered to be of ecological reference quality and one of the best in the driftless area. The acquisition of the property would also transfer to the department an additional access easement to the Tiffany Wildlife Area. The access easement is within the project boundary of the lower Chippewa River State Natural Area. This will also allow the property to be accessible to the public from State Highway 25. And adjacent department-owned land will also allow access to the property, which will allow the property to be open to all 5 nature-based outdoor recreational activities. With that said, we are requesting the board approve the acquisition of 412.86 acres of land for the Tiffany Wildlife Area from Northern State Power for $1,273,400.
Okay, we have no public appearances on this one, but we have a number of written comments that have come in. Very strong support in favor of this acquisition from the Fountain City Rod and Gun Club, Buffalo County Conservation Alliance, Mondovi Conservation Club, Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, Dave Linderud personally, John Schlesselman personally, and the Alma Rod and Gun Club, all in favor. Comments or questions from the board? Robin?
I was contacted by several people from these organizations, and they really wanted to emphasize just what a great benefit this would be to that whole area. And they were really excited to see it come to this position now where it's ready to be approved, and encouraged us to support it. And I just want to commend you and all the parties involved in putting this together. I think it will be a huge asset for that part of the state. Thank you.
I think Nick said it really well. Everything we do is a team effort, big team effort.
Other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, could we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the acquisition.
Doug moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Deb seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And your next item, Terry, is item 4D, land transfer and project boundary expansion for Mountain View State Trail, Grant, and Lafayette counties.
Thank you. The department is requesting approval to accept the transfer of approximately 10 acres of land in Grant, Lafayette counties for the Mountain View State Trail and approve a slight boundary adjustment to accept the transfer. The acceptance of this land transfer fulfills the obligations under the Memorandum of Agreement, MOA, between the department and these associated counties. I just want to give a brief overview of the transfer and this MOA. The department acquired this former railroad corridor in 1976 and has facilitated several land exchanges in coordination with the counties for the department's Mountain View State Trail. With the help of the counties, the department conveyed some segments of the former rail corridor to the counties, who used the land to negotiate and secure a permanent route for the trail from 5 property owners who had the rail corridor going through more of the central part of their property. The counties have successfully done this, and now the permanent trail route is ready for transfer to the department. Mountain View State Trail is a 7-mile-long trail that connects the communities of Platteville and Belmont. It runs along streams and through open countryside where 2 large mounds rise from farm fields on the north side of the trail, including Platt Mound, which is about midway between the 2 communities. It also connects the Pecatonica State Trail in Belmont, which links to the 47-mile Cheese Country Trail in Calamine, just south of Mineral Point, and to the Roundtree Branch Trail in Platteville, which is part of the larger City of Platteville trail network. Hunting and trapping are prohibited within 100 yards of the trail, but any appropriate remainder property will be open to the 5 nature-based outdoor activities consistent with state park hunting rules approved by the board. With that, we're requesting the board approve the transfer of 10.3 acres of land for the Mountain View State Trail from Grant County and Lafayette County to the department, that the board approve the expansion of the project boundary for Mountain View State Trail to include the entirety of the parcels.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Again, no public speakers and no written information for the board. Any questions or discussion? Doug?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Terry. Are these, so it references mounds, obviously, and as part of the trail. Are these geographical features or are these mounds cultural?
They are, for my knowledge, geographical, and they're not disturbed by the trail.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? I have one, Terry, on the, a while back, we did some NBOA's, nature-based outdoor activity restrictions on this as a basis for the grant money that was involved.
Mhm.
And that enabled the local government to go ahead and do the wonderful things they've done here. It's a great project. There's wonderful trail connections. But on those NBOA restrictions, you mentioned there'd still be outdoor opportunity on fragments of land that are outside the 100-foot corridor on the trails. Some of these parcels were relatively small. Could you just in general terms summarize what's available in terms of the 5 NBOAs? Is there significant land that's accessible to the public?
Thank you, Chairman Smith. For this approval by the board, the segments that we're transferring today are very small in nature. None of them would allow for hunting or trapping due to safety issues with it. Along the Mountain View State Trail, there may be other opportunities because the trail extends 7 miles that could be open to NBOAs, or that I should say, rephrase that, are open to 5 NBOAs. For today's purpose, for what the board is looking at today, these segments are very small in nature.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board? Do we have a motion yet? We need one. Thank you, Robin.
I'd move approval.
Robin moves approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Rachel seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the open forum portion of our agenda. We have 3 appearances today, 2 in person and 1 virtual. First appearance is Jim Olson from Madison, petitioning on a revised Home Lake Rule petition and appearing in person. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Chairman Smith, Secretary Wen, members of the board. I've appeared here many times on the wake surfing issue, and looking back, first time I appeared, I think Preston Cole was the secretary. Fred Preen, I think, was the chairman. And I think I've outlasted everybody on the board, except maybe for you, Bill. And also, I found out this morning that your legal counsel, Cheryl Heilman, will be leaving. So I guess I've outlasted you too. I hope it's not my presence that has caused everybody to leave. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the revised petition. I filed it. I have prepared it. It will be filed within 10 days. I'll answer questions if you want. What I'm appearing on is that at a recent session, a legislator said that the DNR was opposed to any depth requirements for wake surfing. I found this very disturbing for several reasons. First, it contradicts the science. The Terra Vigilis company here from Wisconsin has done drone studies that show prop wash from wake surfing boats extends at least 26 feet below the surface. And this disrupts sediments. Phosphorus, it found a doubling of the phosphorus content after the wake surfing boats went through. Water ski boats did not cause a problem. It also impacts the habitat for fish. In Lake Beulah, they found that vegetation beyond 20 feet deep has been destroyed by wake surfing boats. And the local fishing club that has a contest every week for bass found that since wake surfing boats have been present, the catch rate is cut in half. It also goes against the Wisconsin Conservation Congress vote in 2024, which by a vote of 72% approved a depth of 20 feet. I found it also contradicts DNR policy. When I heard about this, I filed an open records request asking for any documents that show that this was a DNR policy, that the DNR is opposed to depth requirements. And within 2 days, I got a response saying that there was none. Compliance with depth requirements is very simple. Every boat, including my rowboat, has a depth finder. It's very easy for people to know, for wake surfers to know exactly where they are. The state of Vermont has a 20-foot requirement. It's been in effect for over a year. and it has had no problems at all with enforcement. If I might, I just want to finish up by reading a quote from Supra Boats, they manufacture wake surfing boats.
Please do, Jim, go ahead.
Okay. In 2022, they came out with recommendations for the depth to that you should wake surf in. One of the things was, they said, how does wake surfing in deeper protect the environment? And I'm quoting, when wake surfing in shallow waters, it's not uncommon to churn up so much sand that the whole area becomes brown and discolored, which has a harmful effect on the vegetation and wildlife. In high traffic areas, it's not uncommon for vegetation to die out completely, creating a watery desert where lush greenery once grew. Staying in deeper water will protect the environment and help reduce vegetation loss while limiting the impact on fish and other animals living in the area. It can also reduce pollution that occurs when impacted trash materials are dredged up, reintroducing them into the ecosystem. That's what the wake surfing people say.
Jim, I also want to note you submitted some written information to the board as well. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, and I don't know that I submitted this quote from the wake surfing industry, but I know how to get it to you.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I was also
Go
going to
ahead,
say
Rachel.
thanks for sending that article from Montana to that update.
Oh, yes.
One of the quotes I had written out of there was, it was regarding raising some of those fines and fees, but that it's tough, but we can't risk it for the sake of our fishing, tourism, hydroelectric and other industries, that we need to get serious on it. And they had, it was $385 to $731 million that they were using, it was anticipated cost to mitigate the damage done by, it was the invasive species. So I thought those were interesting numbers and appreciate you sharing that.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, the western states have really done a job in dealing with invasive species. It's, I think the state of, one of the western states, I think it was Colorado, has what's called the Mussel-Free Colorado Act. And they have a $25 sticker that people are required to have on their boats, which they use to fund their decontamination programs out there. So there are, places that are doing things.
Any other questions, comments? Robin?
Well, I just have a comment for the board discussion, not necessarily for the presenter.
Okay, so you want me to sit down?
But I was just thinking, we do have a number of new board members, and I think it might be time to ask for some more information, especially from law enforcement, in terms of the mechanisms, the abilities, the challenges they have in trying to deal with this issue, especially when it comes to depth and other suggested opportunities to try to protect our lakes, invasive species as well. So if that's something that we could perhaps have some more information on, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, well, the issue continues to evolve and people involved in it also, and I think regular updates are probably welcome. I guess I would ask Jeff and Rachel, to some degree, you're the more recent board members. Is this something that you would appreciate more information on?
Yeah, I could definitely use more information. I was thinking about the particular boats. There are wakeboard boats that shift the weight back to create a bigger wake.
Yes.
I myself have a Thompson wood boat that creates quite a wake. That I'm also wondering how that, how that would all get figured into it. Not even intentionally trying to, provide a wake for somebody boarding, but so yeah, how they would enforce it would be of interest. I could definitely use some more information.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rachel. You've got Doug's next.
Yeah, I would agree. When I came on the board, I think it was the meeting before, or it was an August meeting last summer where there was an informational presentation on it, but it continues to come up in discussions every month as well as out in the community with some of our partner groups. So I think keeping us up to date on what the law enforcement needs are, kind of those other stakeholder groups to let everyone know that we're on it, as well as that opportunity for public input and continued discussion on how we can move forward with this.
Doug?
Thanks, Chair. I agree with Robin wholeheartedly. I think we need more info. I've said this in the past that we've needed to get a little more detail on wake surfing, get together on this issue along with some other ones that keep coming up that we just seem to be out there. But this one especially, and again, I think if there's legislative hearings that this issue is coming up at and we have staff testifying on things like this that we've all expressed concerns on. I'd like to know what prompts opposition to rules like this, if it's enforcement issues that make it difficult for us, if it's technical, what they are. But I think those future discussions needs to include that kind of detail.
Yeah, we could do some of that internally with briefings of the board members, but I think there's some benefit to doing a more public discussion and information item, because not only does it bring the board up to date, but it informs the public where we're at now, who's involved, what some of the issues are, and what some of the challenges are. And June might be very good timing if we could squeeze it into our June agenda. There's budget discussions going on that wake surfing has been a part of. And it's still relatively early in the summer too, which is timely. So, Deb, go ahead.
Recently in Ozaki County, our not little, it's one of the biggest papers that we have, but the May 15th opinion was rules needed for boats that rule the water. This has never come up in our local papers ever before. And Bill Shannon, the Shannon family has owned this newspaper for generations, and they're very well respected. They can make or break local referendums with their opinions. But in this article, he states that more than 40 municipalities have taken matters into their own hands. And in Ozaki County, the city of Mequon and the village of Thiensville each have ordinances that restrict boats making waves on the stretches of the Milwaukee River. So it is coming up, and more. This has never been raised in our area, in the Ozaki County area before. So, yep, information's needed.
Okay, thank you. Karen, is that something we can take a look at? You'll probably want to talk with staff, and we'll take a look at the June agenda, see what kind of room we've got, and if that's an appropriate time to.
Yeah, that sounds good. And thanks for raising it, everybody. Really appreciate the interest, and we can look into putting something on the June meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Can I respond to a couple of these comments? First, as far as Board Member Dassel said, yes, Mequon and Thiensville adopted an ordinance in 2008. Since then, there have been 51 other communities that have adopted ordinances. And we would be very happy to participate in your open discussion. We have put together a wealth of material, much more than you can go through in 3 minutes, that has a PowerPoint presentation. We would love to present that to the members of the board, and we'd love it. I mean, it might be good for us to be interacting when staff meets and other stakeholders as well. And Board Member Hastings, as far as what happens with other boats, the studies show that a typical wake surfing boat goes, 20 to 26 feet, the prop wash. However, water ski boats only go about 6 feet down.
Oh.
So the disruption is really minimal. I've taken enough of your time. I'm always happy, as a lawyer, I'm always happy to talk. But I don't want to have any more quitting because of me.
I know there's been discussions in the budget proposals about a position of information and coordination in the department, and I think in the interim, you've been filling that pretty well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing to note is our June meeting will be held down in Kenosha area. So some of the issues that we've heard about that are unique to southeastern parts of the state, some of the more urban areas, be an opportunity for people to
Yep.
come speak to the board and present on this item as well.
Certainly the southeastern lakes are the ones that are most at risk for invasives.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Jim.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is also here in person, Richard Phillips from Presque Isle, representing himself and talking about wake surfing. Welcome, Richard. Nice to see you in the flesh instead of on the screen.
Yeah,
Thanks
you,
for making the
Chairman.
trip.
I'm the secretary, board members. My name is Richard Phillips. I live in Presque Isle, Wisconsin, and I want to give a quick update on local ordinances regulating wake surfing on lakes too small, too shallow, or too crowded for the sport. As of today, 53 Wisconsin towns, Mequon and Thiensville were the first, have established ordinances regulating wake surfing on their lakes. These ordinances cover over 300 lakes now in the state of Wisconsin, 13% of all lakes over 50 acres. Why is this happening? It's happening because most of us are pessimistic that the state legislature will provide meaningful protection. Why? Why are we pessimistic? Because no bill made it out of committee in the last legislative session. This legislative session, we have not even seen the hint of an outline of any potential bill. Because the wake surfing industry is very focused in Madison, attempting to prevent any meaningful bill from seeing the light of day. Because the industry takes the position that they will not support any law providing protection more than 200 feet from shore, which is nothing. Because the industry takes the position that there should be no restriction whatsoever on depth, no matter how shallow the lake. Because the president of the Wisconsin State Senate recently conducted a listening session in which she stated the DNR advised her that depth restrictions on wake surfing could not be enforced and should not be established. I'm not saying that the DNR said that, but I'm saying that is what the public is hearing that the DNR said. And the public is pessimistic because the DNR has taken no position on this critical issue. This despite the fact that in at least 3 other critical states with glacial lakes, their DNR did take a position. Michigan, Vermont, and Maine, and 2 of those states now have meaningful state statutes greatly restricting wake surfing. So is it any wonder the towns in Wisconsin are moving to do what the state government will not do? Establish restrictions on wake surfing. No one seeks an outright ban, but there are tens of thousands of Wisconsians who strongly support significant restrictions statewide that would still leave hundreds of our largest lakes open for wake surfing. The industry and wakeboat advocates say we need education, not rules, but their own advertising centers on this slogan, rule the lake. There will always be rules for wake surfing. The state can set them, a town can set them, or the industry can set them. And the industry's rules are wide opening wake surfing everywhere. So what comes next? As it becomes increasingly apparent the state will do nothing, citizens groups will lobby for local ordinances. And to counter this, will continue to be increasing threats from the industry, and wake surf boat owners will sue because their rights to do what they want with their lake have been trammeled. And indeed, the first such suit was filed 12 days ago. Burnett County, attacking a town that had passed an ordinance. The 3 plaintiffs in the case all wake surf exclusively on Birch Island Lake, a lake whose greatest depth per the DNR is 13 feet. A lake whose average depth is 6 feet. Not my numbers, the DNR's numbers. Think about it. The wake surfers have brought legal action against the town because they cannot wake surf on a lake with an average depth of 6 feet. It will be an interesting ride. I truly wish the DNR would say something about its view of wake surfing and its impact on the lake and its impact on the 96% of people who use lakes who do not wake surf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions, comments from the board? Very powerful message. Thank you.
You love Jim.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jeff Meisman, who will be appearing virtually. Jeff's also from Presque Isle, representing himself and talking about wake surfing. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jeff Meisman, and I've been working on this wakeboat issue now for 4 years. Just to give you a kind of a point of reference, in the last 7 days, I made 5 presentations to towns and lake associations on what they can do to help regulate at their local level. That's 5 presentations in 7 days, and I was pretty exhausted at the end of that, but I think all the presentations were pretty well received. Today, however, I'm going to be speaking about the lack of progress at the state level on regulating ballast systems used in wake boats. Wake boats use ballast system to add weight to the boat, thus increasing the displacement, which ultimately increases the size of the wake needed for wake surfing. These boats use lake water as ballast and oftentimes cannot completely drain the ballast system, which leads to the potential of transferring aquatic invasive species from lake to lake. Why are ballasted boats allowed on our inland lakes? It's been known since 1980 that ballast water containing aquatic invasive species was discharged into the St. Lawrence Seaway from European ships. From there, the invasives made their way into the Great Lakes and now into Wisconsin lakes. So the following information comes directly from the wakeboat operation and maintenance manuals. They provide the following instructions. Point number 1, ballast pumps will continue working as long as the controller is on. Therefore, operators must ensure that the pumping is turned off when the outlets show only a minute amount of water coming out. Leaving the pumps on will result in pump damage. Allowing the ballast pumps to continue operating when there is no water to be pumped will result in the internal components being permanently damaged, which is not covered under warranty. So my comments there is, this is a violation of NR 19 that states all water must be drained from ballast systems at the landing. Point number 2, again from the manuals. These are directly from the wakeboat manuals. Flushing the ballast tank system. These procedures have been developed to help prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species, especially quagga and zebra mussels, that attach and infest the ski, wakeboard, boat ballast tank systems. Flushing the systems with hot water, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, kill quagga and zebra mussel juveniles and larvae in seconds and protects water bodies from many destructive invasive species that hitchhike on trailered watercraft. My comment, Wisconsin doesn't have 120-degree water cleaning stations at their landings. Point number 3, again, from the wakeboat manuals. To winterize the NXT series boat, add 1 gallon of antifreeze to each of the 3 through hull vents. Upon reactivating the boat the first time after storage, run the ballast system to pump out the antifreeze. The engine must be on and the boat must be in the water. My comment, antifreeze is classified as a hazardous wake and it's illegal to dump it into the lake. So summary, the boating industry operation and maintenance manual instruct the owner, do not completely drain the water from your ballast systems or you'll void the warranty. Zebra and quagga mussels attach and infest the inside of ballast tank systems. And to winterize your boat, add antifreeze and then dump it into the lake. So even the boating industry admits to the ballast tank aquatic invasive species transfer problem. These boats are not designed to comply with Administrative Rule NR 19 and NR 40. These ballasted boats cannot be inspected and require special decontamination equipment to clean. Wisconsin does not have this equipment at the landing. In a recent 2024 Wisconsin Conservation Congress survey, one proposed resolution question stated, would you support the WCC and legislature creating a new statute that prohibits the use of wake boat ballast systems on Wisconsin lakes and rivers? The results indicated that 73% of Wisconsin residents voted approved this resolution. This is a potential solution. The NRB has the power to enact a rule by emergency order that would protect our lakes. Isn't that your job to protect our natural resources? Both environmentalists and boating industry acknowledge this problem, but you've elected to do nothing. Do you want your legacy to be aquatic invasive species of the lakes in Wisconsin? Solving this problem is up to you. Thank you. I'll answer any questions now that you might have.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
Questions from the board? I think your message was very clear.
Okay. And this is all information that comes directly from the manuals. And I guess if you want to say we have common ground there, we do, because we do believe these boats transfer aquatic invasive species. And I think you guys have the power to do something about that. But the boating industry isn't going to do anything unless you do something.
Thanks again for your work and your advocacy on this, this critical issue. It's a difficult one.
You bet. Thank you.
Any comments from the board? Okay, thank you very much. That's our last appearance under open forum. We'll move on to informational items. Our next item on the agenda is 6B, informational item on the proposed timeline and process to update the department's turkey management plan. Taylor Finger, Game Bird Specialist, Bureau of Wildlife Management. Taylor, you're up. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Secretary Hoon, Chairman Smith. Again, I'm here today to provide an informational item on kicking off the process to develop the next iteration of Wisconsin's turkey management plan. All right, so Wisconsin turkeys have been one of the most successful reintroduction stories of all time. And with that, there are numerous recreational benefits that they do provide, whether that's hunting, that's bird watching, that's photography, all across the board. People do love turkeys. In some cases, not as much as others, but yeah. So, but with that being the case, in order to hunt turkeys, turkey stamps are required to be purchased. And since the inception of the turkey stamp, millions of dollars have gone into managing forested habitat, grassland habitat, and barrens habitat. And again, that's benefited, you know, hundreds of other species since its inception. So with that, again, we have had a goal to update the next iteration of the turkey management plan. It's crucial that we identify efficient ways as well as responsible ways to make sure that we're managing this population as effectively and efficiently as possible. And so our most previous management plan was from 2015 to 2025. We've had several since the 1970s. But now this is our opportunity to take the information that we have gathered, the applied research, the feedback from the public, the input that we have from our partners, and update what we can to make sure that the next 10 years of turkey management in the state of Wisconsin is what the public expects us to be doing. And so with that, our goal is to develop this plan starting here in 2025. We'll go throughout the entire process. My next slide kind of gives a brief summary of that timeline, but we would be bringing back to the Natural Resources Board for approval sometime in either late spring or early summer of 2026. So with that, our goal is to, because turkeys are so popular, we are going to engage with as many conservation groups, the public, our recreational users, our DNR staff, our law enforcement, federal entities, county entities, anyone that feels that they want to have a voice in turkey management. And so what we'll be doing is we also are going to be developing it would be workshops, public meetings, public engagement opportunities, not only to keep everyone apprised of how we're doing, what we're looking at, but also to solicit information from the public on, hey, this is where we think we're at. Are we hitting the mark, or do we need additional feedback from everyone? And fortunately, it worked out well in that in 2024, we did a social science survey where we solicited information from turkey hunters as on turkey hunting regulations and things along those lines. So that'll be instrumental in terms of how we update the management plan with regard to those management actions. And as with all of our management plans, once we have everything ready to roll, we'll have a 45-day public input process for anyone in the public to review. And so there's a brief summary of our timeline. Once we get through here today, we'll be initiating the process to develop the Turkey Management Plan Committee. As I said, that'll be tribal entities, conservation organizations, state, federal entities, county organizations, National Wild Turkey Federation, any of the conservation groups that want to be a part of that. And we'll then, as I said, hold the public hearings, have public workshops. We'll consider all of the feedback from those. We'll begin drafting the plan, and then we'll have the 45-day public input with the goal to bring this back to the Natural Resources Board in early summer of 2026. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them.
Any questions, comments from the board? Rachel?
Do you have any kind of anticipated changes in the management plan based on some of that feedback over 10 years, or
So
just wait and see?
yeah, I think it'll be more of a wait and see. Anytime you open up opportunities to change, somebody has an idea and something that we want to change. I will comment through our social science survey. We did ask whether regulatory type of action, we did ask the public, are you satisfied with our current season structure? And our dissatisfaction level was 17%. So if we can get 83% of the public to agree that something we're doing is okay, we're not going to throw a wrench into that. So, but that being said, there is always opportunity to make changes that will provide additional opportunity without negatively affecting the experience of the resource.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Other questions? I have one, Taylor. There's been sort of a parallel process going on with the Congress and some of the spring questions. There's been a couple that relate to turkeys, one on Zone 6.
Yep.
And I'm wondering how that process intersects with the planning process that you're talking about from a timeline or a consideration process.
Yeah, I believe the scope for the Zone 6 and Zone 7 to expand during the basically to make the fall hunting seasons all the same length. That'll actually probably come just a little bit ahead of the turkey management plan, because that's just been something that we've been working on for 3 or 4 years, and we knew the plan was coming down the pipe, but if we could get that through, and again, it had a lot of public support as well as the biology supported, that we could provide additional opportunity without affecting the resource. So yeah, that was one that the Congress had the question. We also included the question on the spring hearings, and something that will probably be moving forward. But similarly, that's where the plan will step in, is if there are other things like that we can engage with the public on and give them a forum to provide us additional feedback, that would be where we'd use the plan at.
Yeah, so basically they're two separate but related things that are going on. So the public shouldn't be confused that one is going to take care of the other one.
Right.
One is the planning effort, and the Zone 6, 7 is the rule change.
Yeah, that, like I said, the Zone 6 and 7 has been one we've been hearing from the North hunters for years now on. And again, it's one of those where when we reintroduced turkeys, they were never supposed to survive up there. I mean, and now they're thriving and doing really well. And that was what that rule said, hey, we have to refrain from hunting in those later seasons because those turkeys need additional help when the winters are bad. Well, the turkeys don't need any help from us at this point. So
They must be tougher than deer.
yeah, no comment.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Taylor.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, our next item is information item 4C. This will be an overview of wetland program efforts. Ben Callen, Waterways Program Director, and Andy Sedlacek, Communications Director. Andy, I should apologize up front for however I butchered your name. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Smith, Secretary Hune, members of the Natural Resources Board. Glad to be here to talk about an overview of wetland program efforts at the DNR. Oh. So here's some outline of what I will present this morning, go through a few of the basics regarding wetlands, some of the services that the department offers regarding those resources, some of the regulations that affect those resources on the state and local and federal levels, and then some actions that interested members of the public can take to provide input and engagement on those resources. And then obviously thanking some of the crucial wetland partners that we are involved with to protect those resources. So we'll start with the very basics. Wetlands are defined in state statute as an area where water is at, near, or above the land surface long enough to be capable of supporting hydrophytic vegetation and indicative soils indicative of wet conditions. So there's three components that I'll highlight. Water, these systems are driven by water. Hydrophytic vegetation, only certain types of plants can tolerate those wet conditions. And then soils, which are great markers to show when there are anoxic conditions indicative of wet conditions. So that's the basics of the what. That is our definition under statute. And one thing I will also highlight is that does not reference any existing mapped resources that may be utilized. It does not point to a surface water data viewer or wetland inventory map on the state to say these are the ones we regulate. It is a scientific-based definition that helps us identify what our authority is. So what are some of the basic wetland types? I've offered a couple of examples of some of those categories. Aquatic bed are areas where plants grow entirely in or on the surface of the water, which is no deeper than 6 feet. Some examples of that vegetation includes pondweed, duckweed, lotus, and water lilies. Another very wet type of wetland is a marsh. Again, it's characterized by standing water dominated by a slightly different vegetation type, cattails, bulrushes, lake sedges. Both of these wetlands have generally have deep organic soils. So you've got the water, vegetation, and soils that we can point to. On the slightly drier side, we can look at wet or sedge meadows. These wetlands have saturated soils rather than standing water. They're often dominated by herbaceous plants like sedges, grasses, and reeds, but can also include iris, marsh milkweed, sneezeweed, goldenrods, things that love to irritate my hay fever at the end of the summer. Another type is we get into some of the woody species of wetland characteristics in the scrub shrub. So these are dominated by alder or other woody shrubs like birch, willow, and dogwood. And then another type is the forested communities, which we see, which are either floodplain forest complexes, muskegs. The tree species you see are going to be things like tamarack, cedar, spruce, elm, ash, and maple. So that's the what of what we're talking about for wetlands. Now we'll look at a little bit of what value or functions do they provide. And there's a, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way, didn't I? There's a list of common functional values that these resources offer. Every wetland is unique and provides a diverse set of ecological services called functional values. These are dynamic systems which change over time and can function differently from season to season or year to year. They are among the most productive ecosystems in the world, on par with rainforests and coral reefs. They support a wealth of plants, amphibians, birds, fish, and mammals. Most game fish species depend on wetlands for feeding, shelter, and breeding habitat as a part of their normal life cycle. Wetlands also function as natural sponges that hold and slowly release surface water, rain, snowmelt, and floodwaters. The vegetation, trees, shrubs, and other herbaceous vegetation can slow the speed of floodwaters and distribute them throughout the floodplain. This action lowers flood elevations, reduces erosion, and alleviates downstream flooding impacts. So within the department, in the waterways program, We offer several wetland services for the public, as well as some regulatory responsibilities. Some of the highlights of the services that we offer to the public are through the wetland identification program. That includes a publicly accessible set of geographic information system mapping tools that the public can look at to identify mapped soil units, mapped wetlands, indicators of hydrology through a hydrologic layer. And that is a good foundation for identifying where there's the potential or known wetlands. As I indicated, it's not a comprehensive set of all wetlands in the state, but it is a valuable resource for the public or interested stakeholders to identify known wetlands or the potential for wetland areas. In addition to that mapping service, which is available for free, we also offer services to help landowners identify wetlands on their parcels or parcels that they're interested in acquiring. We do that through an ID service where a DNR staff member will actually go out to the field, take that desktop information and verify or ground truth what's on the site. So we have a presence absence option where we can do a more high level screening in the field to identify those areas. Or we have a delineation option, which actually identifies the boundary of those wetland resources and puts it into a map and report that a landowner or project proponent can utilize as part of their planning process for activities that they may be interested in completing. We complete over 100 of these services every year statewide. In addition to the identification service, there are professional wetland scientists that perform delineations in the private sector. They work directly with landowners or project proponents for a fee. And then the department reviews the submitted delineation reports that they offer to verify that they've met the requirements of the standards, the core manual that dictates how to identify wetlands, including the regional supplements. That's a service that we offer for a fee. In addition to that, there are wetland scientists and consultants that conduct delineations that have documented, proven expertise and reliability to identify those wetland areas. We have an assured delineator program that allows them to conduct those delineations. They work with the clients and then their clients submit proposals that are take that assured delineation into account as part of their planning. And that delineation information is accepted as though the department had done it. And the way that we ensure that those delineators are performing their responsibilities up to state standards is through an audit process, which we do on an annual basis. There are over 50 assured delineators around the state. One component of projects that impact wetlands is the need to offset those impacts through a compensatory mitigation proposal. And the DNR Waterways Program oversees a couple of compensatory mitigation options. The first being private compensatory mitigation banks. There are 37 private banks around the state. They have restored and protected over 1,600 acres in the last 10 plus years. In addition, if there are activities that occur in a watershed where a established mitigation bank is not available, we have the Wisconsin Wetland Conservation Trust, which is also known as the in lieu fee program. It's very similar in that it establishes projects that restore and protect wetland resources to offset impacts from approved activities. There are 15 in lieu fee projects around the state that have restored and protected over 400 acres. Something new in the state of Wisconsin is an agricultural mitigation banking program. These are for agricultural projects that are authorized and overseen by the Natural Resources Conservation Service at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This program, as I said, is just getting established in Wisconsin. We have 3 constructed projects, and credits are going to be set to start their release this year in 2025. So those are some of the services that the department offers. Now I'll talk a little bit about when there are projects that impact wetlands. And when I say impact wetlands, our authority for the wetland jurisdiction involves a discharge of dredged or fill material. So if there's a wetland on site and there's no discharge of dredged or fill material, that is not a regulated activity. However, if there are wetlands on site and there is a proposal for dredged or fill material, there needs to be some evaluation as to what the appropriate review and authority is that the department has. The first step in that process is through wetland exemptions. These are statutory allowances for certain types of activities that are authorized in wetland areas and do not require a separate permit from the department. So agricultural practices identified in statute are covered under the exemption. Electronic information technology manufacturing is another exemption. That's the Foxconn modification to the statute. And then there are more recently additional exemptions that have been authorized for artificial wetlands and non-federal wetlands. So there are established criteria in statute that identify when a artificial wetland exemption applies or when a non-federal wetland exemption applies. The last 2 categories, artificial and non-federal, require a submittal and department review and decision. And we process over 360 of those every year. The other proposal at the top for general wetland exemptions associated with ag and mining do not require a separate submittal from a project proponent. So if a project proponent intends to discharge to a wetland and does not qualify for an exemption, then we start looking at what's the permit process that the department has. The first option is general permits. There's about 25 of those available today. 8 of them are wetland focused. They generally result in limited impacts in wetland resources. There are established eligibility criteria and permit conditions that must be followed. If a project proponent qualifies for those eligibility criteria and conditions, they can submit an application for department review. If that application is complete, we have 30 days to turn around that application and issue a decision. If the application is incomplete, we work with the applicant and identify what information needs to be provided and then review after that supplemental information is submitted. We process over 300 of those applications every year statewide on the wetland side. And then if a project doesn't qualify for an exemption, doesn't qualify for a general permit, then we're looking at an individual permit process. It's a slightly more thorough application requirement and submittal process. It requires additional review from department staff and is generally a little bit longer in time frame for our review, analysis, and decision making. There's also a public input component as a part of the individual permit process. We have to issue a public notice or notice of pending application that affords the public an opportunity for awareness and to get involved and provide comment regarding that process. And I can explain a little bit more about that in a bit. We process on the wetland side about 50 or more of those individual permits every year. So that's the background on what wetlands are, why they're important, what the exemption or review process is on the state side. Now we'll expand that a little bit to talk about other wetland oversight. And one category includes local government through shoreline zoning. So those are areas within about 300 feet of streams or mapped floodplains, or within 1,000 feet of lakes, ponds, and flowages, and local government local governments have ordinances that oversee development within those shoreland areas, including potential impacts to wetlands. On the federal side, there are 2 federal agencies involved with the oversight of wetlands that we deal with on a regular basis: the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and Army Corps of Engineers. They implement their standards for oversight on waters of the U.S. through the Clean Water Act. And when there are projects impacting wetlands that get submitted to DNR, that applications are submitted to DNR through e-permitting, we have a joint application process with the St. Paul District of the Corps of Engineers. And we forward that application information directly to the Corps, so they have access to the same information that we have and can provide a review and analysis regarding their federal authority. There are factors that influence what is a water of the United States. So several of the previous federal administrations have gone through rulemaking to tweak that definition, and there are also federal Supreme Court decisions that influence what is a water of the U.S. And one of note, recently, 2023 was Sackett versus EPA, and Sackett changed the definition of a water of the U.S. from something that has a significant nexus to a surface water to something that has continuous surface water connection. So it's a slight adjustment, but in the figures on the right, the Natural Resources Defense Council put together a GIS mapping tool that shows what could be translated under their analysis of a water of the U.S. pre-Sackett in the upper screen, with the colored polygons showing where the waters of the U.S. would be, to WOTUS map post-Sackett in the lower right. So as you can see, there's a pretty distinct difference between the quantity of mapped wetlands on that tool. But I'll note that that Sackett decision does not alter Wisconsin's wetland regulations under state law. Wisconsin has a long history of recognizing the need to protect and manage wetlands because of the water quality, flood protection, and recreational opportunities they provide. Wisconsin was one of the first states to adopt water quality standards for wetlands in 1991 and was the first state to pass a comprehensive, unanimous, bipartisan regulation for non-federal wetlands in Wisconsin back in 2001. So how can stakeholders get involved to support wetlands? There's a number of options that I'd like to highlight. The first and foremost, protecting wetlands ensures diverse ecological services. So interested stakeholders and members of the public should consider visiting any of the 5 million acres of wetlands in the state of Wisconsin. There are 6 of note that have been internationally recognized on the list there. including Horicon Marsh, Kakagan Bad River Slough, Chiwaukee Prairie, the Door Peninsula coastal wetlands, Upper Mississippi, and Lower Wisconsin. Another option for stakeholders to get involved and support wetlands is to support organizations that align with their interests and values. Wetland preservation can support wildlife, water quality, and flood protection. And one other option that I would highlight is trying to connect those dots. So we talked about identification, ecology, functional values, and regulations. If folks want to get involved on wetland protection, especially as it relates to the department's authority on project proposals that could impact these water resources, it would be valuable to arm yourself with knowledge. Open houses and public hearings are intended to ensure citizens can contribute to the decision-making process. If there's a project of concern that folks want to get involved with, I would encourage them to read the public notice that was issued associated with that proposal, review the application materials on our website, and provide focused input relating to the department's authority for that proposal. And with that, I will hand it over to Andy.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me and hear me?
We can see you and hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Sedlacek. So, Bill, you were very close on my last name. Thank you. I am the Communications Director for the DNR, leading the agency's Office of Communications. It's nice to see you all again, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. So as a part of this wetland program overview, I wanted to share with you a few ways we've talked to the public about wetlands from a communications and outreach perspective to educate them on this type of land and encourage them to visit the wetlands around our state to hike, birdwatch, kayak, and just get outside. So we've talked about Wisconsin's wetlands a few times recently in the DNR's quarterly publication, Wisconsin Natural Resources Magazine. Most recently, the spring issue, which you see here, featured marshes on the cover, and on the pages inside, we had a big feature article on Horicon Marsh, a list of more marshes to explore around the state, and then a quick guide to common marsh plants. And then, as you can see on the right side, we got a few letters from the editor that this content was well received by our readers and appreciated. So that was very encouraging. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also covered wetlands in the spring 2024 issue of the magazine, which was like a Wetlands 101 like infographic. So it included this 2-page diagram showing what makes up a wetland and some of the animals and plants that you find in there, including 3 endangered things. These custom illustrations were created by one of our graphic designers, and our team worked really closely with program staff to ensure that the graphic was accurate, approachable, and beautiful, and I feel that we achieved that here. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also talk about wetlands with the public on the DNR social media channels. Here is a Facebook post that we published last year as part of a mini campaign around Horicon Marsh. This post was a general profile of the property, and it allowed us to answer questions from the public right in the comments section, which you can see on the right side here. So a couple of quick questions, and then people just saying that they really liked Horicon Marsh, especially the Explorium, which is actually celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our social media coverage of wetlands also extends to Instagram. And these are 2 stills from Instagram Reels that we created, which are like short videos. The one on the left was part of that Horicon Marsh promotion and showed the kayaking opportunities that the wetland and I guess most wetlands offer. The still on the right is from an Instagram Reel we created this spring about our team's favorite marsh plant, the skunk cabbage. The screenshots on the right, again, show some feedback that we received from the public on this content, which is just very encouraging. And it's very exciting for our team to talk about skunk cabbage in that way because we're all big fans. Next slide, please. Thanks. And then lastly, our favorite way to talk about wetlands on social media is in our annual Marsh Madness bracket on Instagram. These are Instagram stories, which are short pieces of content that are live or visible on our Instagram account for only 24 hours. So in a nod to the March Madness NCAA tournament every year, in 2024 and 2025, every day for 8 days in March at the same time as March Madness, we have held our annual Marsh Madness competition, pitting 8 marsh inhabitants against each other, from birds to plants to amphibians. Our Instagram followers get a little intro, then they see the bracket, and then they get a little summary of the matchup, the two things that are like competing against each other for the day. So you'll see a little thing about snapping turtles, and then another little intro summary about American bullfrogs, and then they get to vote. And the bracket fills up every day, just like a March Madness bracket. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for 2 years in a row, the wood duck has been crowned the winner, which, you know, we would like to see skunk cabbage win, but that's okay. It's up to the public to vote. And then here are a few examples of feedback we've gotten from the public on our Marsh Madness bracket, which we see this as a fun, lighthearted way to educate the public on this important and interesting land type that makes up, like Ben said, 5 million acres of land in our state. So I guess all of this is to show that social media and our magazine are really powerful tools for our agency, and we frequently use both to promote reminders. Well, especially social media, we use that to promote a lot of reminders to the public about safety, rules and regulations, like hunting application period, deadlines, and whatnot. And we have a really engaged, active audience on all of our social media platforms. So because of that, we like to sprinkle in this type of educational yet fun content to everyone. We feel it goes a really long way to build positive relationships with the public, and it's really fun for our team to learn about this stuff and work with our experts across the agency to take these things and communicate them in a simple way for the general public to understand. That is it for me. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to share some of the agency's communications efforts around wetlands with you all. And now I will hand it back to Ben. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. So I would be remiss if I didn't explicitly acknowledge the great work that we accomplish collectively by listing some, but not all, of our wetland partners. So it is routine for us to engage and work with private sector, nonprofit, and other government agencies with the objective of identifying and allowing additional public enjoyment from these resources. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Andy. Are there questions from the board for either? Doug?
Thanks, Chair. And so when you talked about exemptions, do the exemptions have standard permit conditions on them? If they're exempt, in the case of mining industry, if they're doing exploratory drilling, an exemption would have some standard conditions on it, even though they have an exemption?
Yeah, I don't want to mislead anybody. The exemptions that relate to, that utilize the word mine are specific to access roads. So the statutory allowance does include construction or maintenance of mining roads utilizing best management practices. So it is not a blanket exemption for a broader category of activities associated with proposed mines.
Another one?
Go ahead.
So 404, has Wisconsin considered taking on 404?
We undertook an effort to evaluate what that would require a few years ago. I believe there was a report generated. It precedes me. But we would be happy to provide that information to the board.
Yeah. And the last one, Chair. So your list, I know you said it wasn't inclusive, didn't list tribes anywhere. I'm sure there's some coordination on wetlands programming with tribes.
Absolutely. And apologize for the oversight. We engage with and work collaboratively with the 11 sovereign tribes in the state on a regular basis. And it is important that regardless of proposal or perspective, to have that strong relationship.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Doug. Other questions, comments? Rachel?
First question, what would the 404 that Doug referenced be?
So under the Clean Water Act, Section 404 is in Wisconsin, something that is handled by the Corps of Engineers. That's their permitting responsibility under the Clean Water Act in the state. There are, I think, 2 or 3 states in the country that have assumed 404 responsibility, meaning they do their state regulations under state authority or statute. They also do the federal authority under the Clean Water Act on behalf of the federal government through the state process. We have evaluated what it would take for the state of Wisconsin to do that, but have not recommended any changes.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I totally appreciate this presentation. Wetlands are probably my favorite ecosystem. And it was, emphasizing all those ecosystem services of our wetlands. It was really neat. I'm working on restoring a wetlands on my property currently with the county, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Ducks Unlimited, and Pheasants Forever. So it's pretty exciting to kind of see all those partners. So I just wanted to thank you as a private citizen that's working through the process. I know I've also heard some complaints that come up regarding the permitting and the time taken to get that permits. There was a couple projects in the central, I guess, East Central region that I know there was concerns that they lost funding for projects because of the length of time in the permitting. I'm sure you're probably aware of some of those concerns, and so just like I should bring this up as we're discussing that.
I appreciate that information. Yep, I am familiar. Anytime you serve in a regulatory role, that there's opportunity for conflict, and so really having a strong relationship with diverse stakeholders allows us to try to forecast where we might have conflict and work to resolve it before it occurs, and we're not always perfect in that endeavor.
Hey, Robin?
So 2 questions, and I think they're somewhat related. Can you give us a quick update on what the status of wetland loss is in Wisconsin? Like, I know there have been periods of time where wetlands have, ceased to exist because of fill and other things. And then also, can you comment on the effectiveness of the wetland mitigation activities that are taking place now to offset losses to some wetlands?
Yep. Historically, there are estimates that we've lost about half of our wetlands in the state. And so, that speaks to about 10 million acres pre-settlement. And it was not uncommon to look at these areas as not serving a beneficial purpose, wastelands, and so they were modified to suit other purposes, whether it was forestry or ag or you name it. And so since the implementation of protection standards really back to the early 70s with the Clean Water Act and then some of the other state and local regulations, we've seen a shift. So the mitigation success, I think, is documented well on our wetland dashboard on our webpage. So we take a historical look, at least the last 5 years of wetland losses, permitted wetland losses, and then mitigation creation. So that information is publicly available on our website.
Ask just one follow-up question. In your professional opinion, do you think that with the challenges we've had of late with the impacts of climate change, that there's a better understanding and acceptance by the public that these wetlands need to be protected and enhanced? And are you seeing less resistance in terms of making sure that wetlands have that protection?
I hope there's a better understanding. I think that's a collective effort, amongst all the stakeholders and folks that care. I think that there is definitely, from a regulatory role, an opportunity for us to help inform the public as well. And we do that. I think that's a huge part of our job. You don't find it in a database or on a website, but effectively engaging the public to try to help people understand the value of these resources, how to accomplish projects by maybe modifying them to either minimize or avoid those impacts. So like we strive to do that on a daily basis. I think that, there are different perspectives on climate change. I am focused on what is the opportunity for us to address the anticipated effects of climate change. And so if it's more frequent, more intense storms, how could that affect resources that we oversee? Are there opportunities for us to look at things more broadly and work with stakeholders to address those potential threats so that regardless of the reasoning behind it, there's a better understanding and information and preparedness to address it.
Other questions?
Yeah, just have another kind of follow-up question or comment. I wanted to commend Andy and the communication staff. That power of sharing the history of the marshes and the educational component. I definitely read the article in the Natural Resources magazine, and I learned a lot and was definitely interested and intrigued. So keeping up the great work of that communications team.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I have one quick question for you, Ben.
Yes, sir.
In your comments, you mentioned some of the interface between state and federal in terms of authority and who does what on particular levels of regulation or management. Are you looking at the horizon? Do you anticipate changes, significant changes in the federal role or the level of their jurisdiction and what that might mean for Wisconsin?
Always. That's a moving target, and it has been for the last several administrations. So we have a very strong relationship with the regional district in St. Paul. We also maintain relationships with other core districts that oversee projects of their own within the state of Wisconsin, and anticipate what that could mean for us. The backstop is that, as I said, we have, very a long tradition in the state of prioritizing the value of these water resources. And so those regulations are key to us to help ensure that we're implementing those standards appropriately. It's hard to predict what can happen on a federal level, but we do stay in touch and work with our partners to try to forecast what we can.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Andy. Very comprehensive briefing. I think we're past due for a short break. So why don't we take a break and try and resume at 10:35. Okay.
Then right.
you
Sure.
Just real close to that.
Okay.
I heard the clock banging on the wall. Okay, we'll resume board meeting with item 4D, information item, a presentation on the 2025-27 reauthorization of the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program. Stephen Little, Deputy Secretary, and Maggie Hutter, Management and Budget Director.
Chairman,
Welcome, Stephen.
item 6D.
Oh, 6D. What did I say?
4.
Oh. Get my numbers mixed up. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on to 6D.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can call it whatever number you want. Good morning, Chair Smith. Good morning, Secretary Young, and good morning, members of the board. I am Stephen Little. I am the Deputy Secretary. I'm here with Maggie Hutter, our Director of Management and Budget. And I just want to spend a few minutes with you this morning talking about the reauthorization of the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program, which is Wisconsin's flagship land stewardship program. Last time I did one of these, I spent about 20 minutes before advancing a slide, so already ahead of the game. So the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program is Wisconsin's flagship land and water conservation initiative. It was established in 1989 to preserve natural areas, to protect water quality, to expand outdoor recreation opportunities across the state. It's named after former governors Warren Knowles and Gaylord Nelson. The program is a bipartisan effort administered by the Department of Natural Resources. Since its inception, the Knowles Nelson Stewardship has invested over $1.3 billion in land and water conservation. It's protected over 650,000 acres statewide. It has funded more than 1,500 grants for parks, trails, and campgrounds. It's ensured that 99% of Wisconsinites live within 5 miles of a stewardship-funded site. It has returned approximately $2.5 billion annually to ecosystem services such as flood mitigation, clean water, and recreation benefits. The origins of what we call the stewardship program can be traced back to the 1960s in a program called the Wisconsin Outdoor Recreation Program, or ORAP. The Wisconsin Outdoor Recreation Program was a groundbreaking environmental initiative that was launched in 1961 under Governor Gaylord Nelson. It marked one of the earliest state-level efforts in the United States to fund land conservation and outdoor recreation through dedicated and a consistent revenue stream. I'll just share with you some historical milestones and guidelines of the ORAP program. So it was championed, like I said, by Governor Gaylord Nelson. Sorry. And it was funded by a 1-cent tax on cigarettes. It aimed to expand the public's access to natural spaces by acquiring land for parks, forests, trails, and recreation areas. ORAP was envisioned not only as an environmental initiative, but also as an investment in public health and quality of life. In 1969, Governor Warren Knowles expanded the original program, what was called ORAP 200. It was envisioned to be a long-term plan designed to protect more land and meet the growing public's demand for outdoor recreation. This expansion marked Wisconsin's commitment to environmental protection throughout the 70s, what is often called the state's environmental decade. From 1961 to 1990, over 3 decades of its existence, ORAP helped acquire over 54,000 acres of land for conservation and recreation purposes. It supported properties to become the cornerstones of Wisconsin's outdoor infrastructure, including many state parks and wildlife areas. The program gradually phased out in the late 1980s due to declining cigarette tax revenue and changing fiscal priorities. ORAP's legacy directly inspired the creation of the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program in 1989, which expanded the vision and scale of the state's conservation efforts in Wisconsin, using bonding instead of a dedicated tax. ORAP was the first state-funded land conservation program in the United States, and its success became the model for other states to follow. It demonstrated the value and dedication of a dedicated revenue source for conservation efforts, linking fiscal policy to long-term public benefit. Governor Nelson's work on ORAP foreshadowed his later national leadership on environmental issues, including the founding of Earth Day in 1970. As I said before, since its inception of the Knowles Nelson program, it's invested more than $1.3 billion in land and water conservation. It's protected more than 650,000 acres statewide. It's funded more than 1,500 parks, trails, and campgrounds, and it's ensured that Wisconsinites live within 5 miles of a stewardship-funded site. The Knowles Nelson 2000 program, as we currently envision it today, is the current structure that you see on the presentation. It's basically divided into 2 sub-programs. There's a land acquisition sub-program, or buckets as we like to call them, with DNR general acquisitions being part of it, Ice Age Trail acquisitions, nonprofit conservation organization grants, or NCOs, and county forest grants. Those are on the land acquisition side. On the grant side, the program supports varying sub-programs, including local units of government, or LUG grants, which are used for parkland acquisitions and development, urban green and urban rivers grants for conservation projects, recreational boating grants, and also friends groups that use the grants to support and upkeep on the maintenance of our state properties. So I shared this kind of sub-program structure to begin to kind of lay some information on you about the way that the program operates. A lot of opponents of the stewardship program often just focus on the land acquisition side of the program, saying that all we're doing as a department is just trying to acquire more land, take more land off the tax rolls. When in actuality, land acquisition is just one part of the program itself. And then the part that DNR is actually working on in terms of land acquisition is just a smaller part of the land acquisition side. So the pie chart that I have before you is just a representation graphically of the land acquisition side as well as the grant development side. So again, the DNR portion of land acquisition is but $6 million of the $33.25 million of annual allocation for stewardship, and the more than 50% is really dedicated towards the land acquisition. Towards the other grant side. This is just another graphic representation about how the money is actually going more to local units of government, to NCOs, and to other non-government entities for stewardship-related activities. So moving on, another, I guess, I don't want to say challenge, but another assumption that has been laid out by critics of the program talk about the fact that there's no oversight when there are acquisitions that are taking place, or when there are, grants that are being given to local units of government or to NCOs. There are varying levels of oversight that are put into place to protect the efficacy of the program, but then also make sure that there is appropriate oversight at many stops along the way. Starting first with the Natural Resources Board. I've kind of laid out for you the buckets, if you will, of oversight that you all have when you approve stewardship projects. In fact, you had one that was on the agenda earlier today. This would be the the Tiffany Wildlife Area in Buffalo County that you approved. So you have approval for any acquisition that's over $150,000. That's more than 40 acres outside of a established project boundary. You have authority when the price is more than the highest appraised value to, again, protect the taxpayers. Acquisitions by condemnation, by which a government exercises the power of eminent domain to take private property for public use, also need to come before the board for approval. Acquisitions by gift of land to the department, and also improvements that exceed 35% of the total appraised value. Lastly, acquisitions of short tenure with substantial increased value. This is to address concerns about potential land speculation and or sufficient due diligence that was done with the acquisition. In addition to the sideboards, if you will, that the department has on them, there are also legislative sideboards. I'll say that the biggest sideboard that the legislature imposes on the program is in the amount that is authorized to be spent by stewardship. People often say, how much is enough? How come you all are spending so much? When in actuality, we only can spend what we're authorized to spend through the legislature. In addition to that, there are also other restraints that have been, or constraints that have put on the program, primarily through the Joint Finance Committee. As you'll see, there were a series of I guess, checks, if you will, that were put on the program starting back in the 1990s and then moving forward to 2024. I highlight these for you only because of the result of a lawsuit that was filed by the governor and the Supreme Court back in 2024, and a near unanimous decision removed some of these barriers or some of these limitations that were put on the program due to their belief that there needs to be more transparency in terms of how the legislature is operating with the programs, particularly the stewardship program. So in spite of all of those that were taken away, there are still other sideboards that exist statutorily. On the prior slide, we talked about the MBOAs, and you've heard about that this morning, the nature-based outdoor activities. There's every effort to make sure that all 5 of those activities are allowed when we purchase or acquire a project, or when there are acquiring projects that are coming through outside of the state acquiring land. But then there's also other sideboards that are put up to make sure that we are spending the funds responsibly. That includes not being able to borrow into future years, not being able to spend beyond our means, being able to use efforts for prior fiscal years. That would mean like lapsing funds, if you will. Some parts of the program are undersubscribed, whereas we have some parts that are oversubscribed. This allows us some flexibility to be able to address the demand for some of our projects that are out there. Getting back to some of the, I guess, challenges or some of the things that our proponents like to talk about. Again, they talk about how much is enough, DNR? You all are spending all this money on acquiring on land, and you're also taking money off the tax rolls. This representation here is to show that the majority of the acquisitions that we have are subject to a limit, actually, in terms of how much we can spend on acquisition versus how much we spend on easements. So the blue representation And the graph kind of shows that it's been fairly steady over the last 20 years in terms of how we're spending our money or how we're acquiring property, and that we're not actually spending as much on land acquisitions, but we're spending more on easements. And that's a statutory requirement that we've been adhering to. Critics express some concerns about the program in terms of its financial aspects, primarily the debt that's incurred through the state bonding and to fund these land acquisitions. So between 2015 and 2025, interest payments on stewardship-related bonding or debt amounted to approximately $230 million, with an outstanding principal of about $414 million as of January of this year. Despite these costs, the proponents argue for the program that the program delivers significant economic benefits. It protects land, it ensures tourism, it increases nearby property values, and provides ecosystems services like flood mitigation, water purification, which can lead to long-term savings and revenue generation for communities. As of 2024, outdoor recreation amounted to about $11.2 billion of the state's gross domestic product, or GDP, and it represents 2.6% of the state's total GDP, which highlights a 9.4 increase from 2023, which shows the robust nature of our outdoor recreation economy. The outdoor recreation economy supports almost 97,000 jobs. It spans manufacturing jobs, retail, tourism, and other services that are provided, collectively providing more than $5.4 billion in compensation for Wisconsin workers. So the way I like to think about it is that the stewardship program is a part of a robust engine that supports significant benefits to the state in terms of the economy. The future of the program. Well, as we know, the program's future can be uncertain. While Governor Evers has proposed a 10-year reauthorization with $100 million annually starting in 2026, there have been some leaders who have indicated skepticism around renewing the program under its current terms. There have been others that have acknowledged that the program's benefit and advocate for its continuation, albeit with potential reforms to address fiscal and oversight concerns. I will now ask Maggie Hutter, our Management and Budget Director, to provide an overview and a briefing on what the Governor's stewardship reauthorization request is all about. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Maggie. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Deputy Secretary Little. Chair Smith, Secretary Yun, I'm Maggie Hutter, the Management and Budget Director. I'm going to give a little overview of the Governor's proposal. So as Deputy Secretary Little mentioned, the Governor is proposing a pretty big change. So $100 million per year over 10 years. So that's a $1 billion investment in the stewardship program as proposed by the Governor. We're also seeing a bit of a shift in the focus to really prioritize the programs that we know our constituents are interested in. So I'm going to walk through kind of a comparison of where we are right now and what the Governor is proposing. So we're going to start at the top. So that land acquisition subprogram that Stephen mentioned, there's currently $1 million set aside for the Ice Age Trail. That would stay consistent under the Governor's proposal. That's money really just for trying to fill out those trail segments that the department is looking at. Next, another $3 million for county forest grants. That's consistent with the old program, really reflects the current demand that we see from the counties. Next, looking at just all general department acquisitions, a little uptick there from $5 million per year to $6 million per year. So if we add up our Ice Age Trail money and our general acquisition money, we get to $7 million total for DNR acquisitions per year for the next 10 years. And then to round out that category, we're up to $14 million a year in grants to nonprofit conservation organizations for the acquisition of land. And that's double where they are right now at $7 million. So we look at that as a whole, less than a quarter of the stewardship program as proposed by the governor would be focused on land acquisition. And then even more, only 7% of the governor's proposal would be used for DNR acquisitions. So it's really shifting away from DNR's purchase of land or easements. Then going down into the property development subprogram. So we currently have a Friends of State Parks program where we provide matching funds when our friends groups raise money to do projects on state park lands. So this is increasing that amount from $500,000 per year to $2.5 million a year. Next, the governor has proposed a new program. This is a tribal co-management program through property development. So this would be DNR working collaboratively with our tribal partners to do different kinds of work on DNR land. Think signage that shows the historic significance of these lands and what role they played. So making that information more widely available to the public. Another new subprogram are wildlife and habitat management grants for NCOs. So this is $5 million $5 million in cash per year, so not bonding, for more soft practices that these NCOs are interested in doing. So actual habitat management, acknowledging that NCOs and the department collectively own quite a bit of land, and that land needs to be maintained and taken care of. So this would provide that actual cash funding to accomplish those goals. And then finally, under that subprogram is the DNR property development program, which we're seeing a pretty significant increase in, from $4.5 million per year to $15.45 million per year. And that's really a reflection of DNR taking care of what we already have. So this is just doing those infrastructure projects and infrastructure work on the land that we already own to make it the most beneficial it can be for our user groups. And then finally, looking more at our local units of government grants. So the governor is creating a local unit of government or club grant program for motorized recreation. And that would be at $5 million per year. So this is really targeting that snowmobile, ATV, UTV type recreation that we see a lot of people throughout the state participating in. So making it possible for different trail acquisitions and development. Additionally, our recreational boating facility grant program, it's currently at $3 million per year, tripling that to $9 million per year in recognition that we see a lot of demand in this grant program. It's basically how we help get people on the water. So boat ramps, that type of facility, to really get people to the recreation that they're looking for. And then finally, the biggest portion of the money is grants to local units of government for development projects. So that's currently $9.25 million per year, getting up over $36 million per year. And this is money that the department would push out in grants to all of the local units of government for different projects that they want to do. And this is really making sure that local priorities are respected and that we help these governments bring different methods of recreation to their area. So it's really exciting to see such a big proposal and big investment in stewardship. As we know, it supports a lot of goals for the department and for everybody that recreates throughout the state. So a lot of new things, definitely a switch in focus. So as I mentioned before, we're creating new subprograms like the wildlife and habitat management grants and the tribal co-management subprogram. Something to note about the tribal co-management subprogram. So the Joint Committee on Finance is currently working through the state budget right now. And the first thing they do when writing the budget, they meet and they decide what they want to pull out of the governor's budget and to say, we're not really interested in considering this. And the tribal co-management subprogram is something that the legislature or that the committee pulled out in their motion number 4, which is kind of disappointing because it was an exciting program to see from the governor. But as of now, that has been pulled out by the committee. Further down the list, as I mentioned, creating the motorized recreation grant subprogram, which I think it's worth noting motorized grants are currently eligible projects, but this would be creating a specialized subprogram to really target that interest. And then the governor's budget also eliminates the requirement that no more than 1/3 of land acquisition funds be spent on fee simple purchases. And that goes back to Deputy Secretary Little's slide where he showed right now 1/3 can be spent on acquisition and fee simple with 2/3 to easements. And what this is really targeting is what's available. So we hear a lot about we don't want to just be have DNR purchase a lot of land where people can't access it or where it doesn't benefit a lot of people in the state. And if we're limited to 1/3 fee simple purchase, the easements that we can spend the rest of the 2/3 of the money on are mostly up north. So freeing up more of that flexibility in how we purchase land will allow us to spend more money in the southern half of the state where a lot more people are located. So that is also a proposal under the governor's budget. So as Deputy Secretary Little mentioned, a lot of changes, but staying true to the core of stewardship, which is helping people find ways to recreate and access recreation throughout the state so they can enjoy everything Wisconsin has to offer. Any questions for me or Deputy Secretary?
Yep, go ahead.
First of all, this is so incredibly helpful. Information on a topic that I care a great deal about, the Knowles Nelson stewardship programs. The fact that the state Supreme Court got rid of the anonymous objection piece was helpful for transparency. I know one of the things, I've been attending hearings and my Senator Jody Haber-Sinikin has been doing a lot of briefings in our area on Knowles Nelson. And one of the things that I think people forget about something I never thought would happen in my lifetime, and that was a pandemic, is that during the pandemic, how these particular properties gave people joy and community that they wouldn't have had. And so I really, really appreciate this work. And I know that we will all be working in our own way to support what the governor has done here, but your work is fabulous. Thank you so much.
Other questions? Robin?
So Maggie, I'm thinking this might be more for you, but even feel free to comment as well. I know that, so first of all, a lot of these grants to local communities are communities that are not only in highly populated area, but in rural areas. And it really drives economic growth and economic stability in areas that might be seeing declining populations, but they have beauty and access to nature that folks want to come and see. I was wondering if you had any idea about the ratio of funds to economic growth and whether there's any breakdown of that in urban versus rural. That's, I mean, it's kind of a specific question, but maybe you might have some generalizations to make on that.
It is a very specific question. I would be happy to take a look into what information we have about the economic impacts of the stewardship purchases. I know Department of Tourism does track some information in terms of just general outdoor recreation and the impact it brings to our local economies. I do not have that on hand.
Part of my asking that questions is because there was a devastating fire on the Great River Bicycle Trail that leads into Trempealeau. And I know that that community in particular is very worried about local businesses because they get so much bicycle activity coming into that community through that trail. And it just kind of highlighted to me, that's just one example of where maybe you take for granted that that's always going to be there. But when something like this happens and it's cut off, they're going to be hurting. Those businesses are going to really have some challenges if that's not back up to, providing access. There's no other way to get there by bike, really. So anyway, that was part of it. And then the other question I have is, do you know based on these increases, is there a correlation to how utilized these existing programs are? Like which ones run out of money first? And are those the ones that are seeing a more significant increase in the governor's proposal?
Yeah, absolutely. Basic. So the most utilized programs that we have are our local units of government and our rec boating facilities. Those are the most oversubscribed we have. So those are seeing really significant increases under the governor's proposal, whereas something like county forest grants, the amount of money we have right now is really reflective of what the demand is. So it's being held steady. So yeah, it really is targeted to putting the money where there is the most demand.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'm not sure how related this is, but it keeps coming to my mind, so I may as well ask. With the, increased the motorized recreation grants and some of the increased boat access, how does that impact the wardens and the areas they have to cover and the needs? I know the UTVs in my area are a significant safety concern with accidents happening pretty regularly. So just curious how that overlaps, and I know it's not maybe directly in this, but.
Thanks for the question. I would just say that it certainly does have an impact. And as we put together budgets, there will have to be specific initiatives or specific requests that are going to have to address your specific questions because certainly the more activity that we see on the lakes, the more activity we see on our trails, it's going to require the resources to be able to make sure people are able to recreate safely on the trails or, on the waters.
So is there kind of that corresponding part in that, the warden budget for additional staffing and their incoming class?
That's going to be part of what Maggie will be working on in the next budget and our budget analysts, because, the stewardship program itself is only one part of what you recognize as a larger, funding challenge or issue to make sure that we're balance in terms of providing the resource, but then also providing the safety so that people can recreate outdoors. So certainly we're committed to making sure that our warden staff and all of our staff have the resources they need to provide that protection that people expect.
Thank you very much.
Other questions, comments? I would like to make one right at the end, just to further emphasize a very important point in this that you've already mentioned, and that is the evolution of stewardship and OLRAP. Way back when OLRAP was started, it was primarily a DNR-funded program, land acquisition, some development. But it has evolved over the years into a program, and your charts show this very, very clearly. It's evolved into a program that funds a much broader conservation community for anybody with an interest in outdoor recreation, land management, land-based recreation. And the majority of the money actually goes to conservation partners. The DNR manages the funds, yes, but it's a throughput management. We get funded and the money goes out to a wide range of conservation partners. So everybody that has an interest in this really ought to take note. It's their stewardship fund more than it is the department's fund. So I really appreciate the detailed information you provided on that and your emphasis on it. And I just wanted to close by doubling down on that conclusion, I think, that you made very clearly.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Not to step on your comments, but I realize that I neglected to just share one other aspect that I'd like to just clarify. It talks about taking lands off the tax rolls. There are two tools that we utilize at the department to make sure that that does not happen to a large extent. The easements that Maggie talked about is certainly one powerful way that we're able to put restrictions on how the land is used, make sure it's used for the public, but that still remains on the tax rolls. The other powerful tool that we have is what's called payment in lieu of taxes, so that when a project is acquired or a property is acquired, you're able to enter into a program where the department or there'll be compensation to make sure that the counties or the governing body is held harmless in terms of that land being taken off the tax rolls. So I would be remiss if I didn't just make sure that the public knew that there are processes in place to make sure that we're not just taking blindly properties off the tax rolls that are still generating, revenue, and they're still generating, obviously, the ancillary revenue as it relates to all the outdoor activities and recreation opportunities. Thank you.
Very important point, Stephen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. Next item is item 7, Department Secretaries Matters. Karen, you're on.
Great. Thanks. I don't have much more to add. Just thank you for your participation today and convening. I think we've got a lot of business done, and I really appreciated the informational presentations that I think give you a comprehensive view of some of the issues that we face, not just one part of it, and hope to do more of those in the coming meetings that we have together. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the real estate transactions from the board? Not the 3 that we decided on, but the pending ones that are listed. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, board members matters. Rachel, you get first opportunity.
We're going around the other way.
Okay, so,
Well, I was just thinking before that I was jealous of the secretary's agenda and itinerary over the last couple of months. That it's so neat and valuable to be able to meet with all the different partner groups and realize how many there are, with all different concerns, but that we all have this shared goal and a great amount of passion for whatever our kind of niches. So I had also attended the Conservation Convention, which I really enjoyed and had a lot of really good conversations, and then through just other meetings and just that value. I think the wetlands presentation too, with realizing how many groups there are out there, how many people are volunteering their time, how many niches there can be, and how we all overlapped and intersect. So encouraging people to get out there and get involved, or learn about those different groups. And my little story about spring being such an exciting time of the year. I think May is by far the most exciting month, and spring always seems to want to be so slow to come, but then sprints away from us. But that we're kind of coming into summer, and encouraging everyone to get out in these natural spaces, almost maybe for me, because I was thinking as a farmer, it's hard for me to leave my farm during this busy time, but I've got my own little wetlands and other ecosystems that I steward. But so everyone get out and go visit those further away places for me. And thanks everyone here for all they do. Thank you, Cheryl, and congratulations too on your retirement.
yeah,
That's
thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yep, thanks, Chair. Same, congratulations, Cheryl. Great work. It's been a privilege, so, and don't be a stranger though. Also welcome Jeff to the board. Look forward to working with you. If you need anything, just reach out. I'm always available. Pretty easy to find. The June meeting, if we do a wake boat item on that one, I'm gonna miss the June meeting. But again, I'll send comments or try to participate best I can in a written fashion, because I've been harping about it. So I'm looking forward to getting involved in that discussion if possible. There was a donation item, and I didn't want to take it out of consent agenda, and I know Justine isn't here, but the SFT, the Sturgeon for Tomorrow donation for Wolf River work, and you've all heard me talk about Wolf River issues with sturgeon before here, but I'm wondering how that works, if fisheries staff are guiding Sturgeon for Tomorrow and where those dollars go. In this case, the one on riprap work that is a repair, not new rock work, in that amount of money. At some point, that system really needs some passage to it, and both of those dams, the only two on the entire system, would allow sturgeon to reach some really valuable headwater habitat that they don't get to now, where we're just building fake habitat to let them fish spawn on, although successful. It just, if Sturgeon for Tomorrow and DNR fishery staff would look at that, it really would be a valuable venture to get fish past those dams. That's it, Chair.
Just for clarity, Doug, your question on the Sturgeon for Tomorrow grant, did you want some more detail or specifics on how that's managed and decisions are made?
Yep, that's what I would be interested in, how the fishery and Sturgeon for Tomorrow folks interact and decide on which projects those grant dollars go to. And again, grateful to Sturgeon for Tomorrow and that system. They've done tons for that system, but yeah, a little more detail.
Aaron, could we ask fisheries just to look into that more detail and then report back?
Yeah, we're happy to follow up on that, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks. Deb?
Thank you, Chair. I always feel like coming to these meetings is like a graduate school class on 25,000 topics. And it's always very interesting, and I always feel that I leave here having more questions. I really am going to say again, Stephen, your piece on the Knowles Nelson, back in my neck of the woods, we have a real opponent that keeps rearing his head. And so this is going to be helpful to me. And finally, welcome, Jeff. It's really an easy peasy board, nothing to do, really, nothing to look at. You know? I mean, I've sat on other boards, insurance company boards and the state baseball board, and this is like, holy cow, this is a lot. And Cheryl, thank you for always being so kind and gentle and yet pushing. So I really appreciate that. And best of luck.
Hey, thank you. Jeff?
Well, I'm just happy to be here. It's quite an educational process. I appreciate the access to the staff. I had a great briefing about this upcoming meeting, which I really appreciated. I think I've got a pretty good background for this, but there's a lot of areas here that I'm not familiar with, and I do appreciate the staff and their efforts and cooperation and discussing with me the issues. I do. So. And Cheryl, good luck for the retirement. We haven't known each other long, but appreciate the little time we've had together, and looking forward to further reports on how it's going. So.
Hey, thank you. Robin?
Well, also welcome, Jeff. It's nice to have somebody else in the neighborhood. So I am glad to see that the Driftless area has good representation on board. I also was at the Conservation Convention, and it was really interesting. I sat down with a group of folks who I didn't know anybody at the table. And I was with the bear hunting group. So it was really educational and interesting to get to talk to folks and hear their passions and learn about their perspectives on things. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. I've also gotten some feedback from folks about how happy they are with how the CDACs are doing. And I was wondering if there was an opportunity. I think that Jeff Pritzel is going to be doing an update in June on tentatively. And if that were the case, I would appreciate him providing some information on kind of what he's seeing in terms of progress from the changes to the CDAC. So that would be really helpful. From a longer term perspective, I was having conversations with some folks, and we were talking about chlorides and the increased elevations of chlorides and concentration in water. And I was thinking maybe for September or October, if we could have a little bit of an informational briefing on chlorides as we get into the season that we're just leaving, that of the ice and snow season. But I didn't want to wait until then to ask for it because I would forget. So it was on my list. So if somebody could put that on the calendar for the future, that would be helpful. We are getting into the season of our outstate travel meetings. And I just really want to thank all the staff. It's a huge amount of work for them to put this together, and they're doing an outstanding job. And I'm really looking forward to all three of our visits and the focuses that we'll have based on the geographic areas we're going to. I want to remind folks that we're still celebrating 125 years of state parks. And so please to get out and visit your state parks. They're just amazing resources. And we should celebrate the fact that we have so many wonderful places to recreate in that the public has access to. I just kind of piggybacking onto that, I did mention the Trempealeau, the bridge that was now inaccessible to get to Trempealeau on the Great River Bike Trail. And it just goes to show you how one incident can result in really thinking about how much you appreciate and take for granted that these access and trails are available to us. So thanks to all the DNR staff who are working on that. Lastly, just Cheryl, thank you so much for your expertise and your knowledge. It will, take a village to replace you, but I know you're leaving us in good hands. So thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Robin. I've got just a couple of comments here at the end. I also attended the Conservation Congress Annual Convention and extend board congratulations to Rob Bowman to being reelected to chair, to his executive committee, and to his district leadership council. And we have our June meeting coming up, and that's when the Congress is coming in to report on the spring hearings and their recommendations. So very much look forward to their advice at that time. We also host a dinner, social event on Tuesday night before the board meeting, and it's a chance to get together with the Congress leadership. There's some new members there. We have some new members, and it's just a chance to continue to maintain and build that relationship. So if you can make that Tuesday night dinner, I highly encourage it. Another event coming up, or I should say a couple of events coming up. One of them is another very important annual get-together. It's the Partners event hosted by the Chippewa Tribes and the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. It's something they've done for many, many years. Partners in the basically the treaty fishery, northern, the hunting, fishing, gathering rights, and it's proven to be such a success in building relationships. It's really broadened into a much broader spectrum of state government up there at this. But the focus is started with the department and continues along that end. And I know that department sent out invitations to the board some time ago. I'm going to make the event, and I don't know if anybody else was able to do it, but if you are, let me know, and maybe we can coordinate getting together up there. But that's a very important one.
What was the date on that one?
It's June 5th. It's coming up fast. And then lastly, we've mentioned the June meeting a couple times on topical issues and staff work to put it on. I'd like to make a couple of comments about the out of Madison board meetings. They are a big load. They're an additional expense. And what we hope to accomplish by that is bringing the business of the board closer to the public in parts of the state that we don't typically get to. But we like to bring our business out to make it convenient for people that want to come in here personally and talk with us, or just sit in and observe the conduct of the board meetings. And the other thing that it really serves us well is it gets us as board members out to see firsthand what department staff are working on, what the priority issues are, what their role is, the partnerships they have with local people. It just gives us a much stronger and a much more in-depth understanding of many of those issues. So I know sometimes logistically it's difficult to get to those meetings, but they're very important, and they are usually very enjoyable. And our June meeting is going to be June 24th, 25th, and we're going to be in the Kenosha area, meeting at Kenosha and spending some time in the field looking at very pertinent natural resource issues in that area. And the last thing I have to say was going to be a huge thank you from the board, and they've already done a better job individually than I could do for them. Well, I'll just keep it more to my comments, but Carol, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. You've been absolutely great advisor to the board. You're always looking for solutions. Your communication style is gentle but clear. And you've always managed to look ahead at the board and keep us on the rails and generally out of trouble, and that's very, very appreciated. So both on a board and on a personal level, I just appreciate very much the opportunity to work with you and wish you the best. Thank you. Carol promised me she would give a very brief speech of 2 words. And we'll honor that. Okay, with that, I don't see any other business on the agenda. And we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn from Rachel. Is there a second? Doug seconds. Any comments, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. We're adjourned.